All right, 1.3 long division. We're talking about long division without remainders. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to accurately divide large numbers that have no remainders. Okay, and we'll get into that here in a second. But my guess is that when I say the word long division, or those two words, that most of you guys are like, what? Long division? You kind of end up like SpongeBob here, where it brings you to tears, honestly. And so I thought it would be good for you to end up meeting, the fearless developer of long division. That would be Cornelius, and he was a nice little pup and wanted to make a little bit of humans angry. I guess that should have actually been a cat, shouldn't it have been? But because cats are evil. But you know what? Here's the thing. Long division, we've made it a big deal, a lot harder than we needed to. And so I'm going to teach you guys a way that I think is going to be a little bit easier. So I want you to, I taught SpongeBob this actually, and afterwards, he loved it. He loved it. So we want you to be able to love long division. Okay, maybe not love it, but more than you did. Okay, so let's go through some terms in division. And what we see, and before we get into it, really, I want to talk a little bit about those two little things at the bottom there. Okay, we've got divisor, quotient, and dividend, and those are those are division problems. Okay, and we write division in a couple of different ways. One, like it's written there with that little like check mark looking weird box rectangle thing that is over the 847 there. That's one way that we talk about division. The other way is actually as a fraction. Okay, fractions are a division problem. Okay, so when you have 847 in the numerator right here divided by 5, and you think it's just a fraction, that's actually a division problem as well. So don't be scared when you see that. Okay, so those are the two types of division problems. Now the terms in division, the first one, and since we know division, is just the opposite of multiplication, the number being divided is called the dividend. Okay, so that 847 there in the example, those are called the dividend. It's not so much that I need you to understand that, but please know that is the number being divided. All right, the divisor is the number that is doing the dividing. Okay, 5 goes into 847 how many times? 5 would be considered the divisor. And then the answer to that problem, the answer is called the quotient. That's what we're looking for, is the quotient. Okay? So before we get into too much of this, I do want to talk a little bit about multiplying by tens. For example, okay, 7 times 2. This is something that's very easy. We all know what 7 times 2 is. It's going to be 14. That's super, super simple, super, super easy. Here's the deal, though. If I were to add a little bit of a harder problem and do 70 times 2, some of you guys may know this, but if you do that in your calculator or you do it with long multiplication, you're going to end up getting 70 times 2 to be 140. And if you notice, all we did is we added a 0 to the 7. And by doing so, we also added a 0 to the 14 as well. There's a 0 at the 70 and then 0 with the 14. Okay? If you do 70 times 20, you're going to get 1400. So there's 2 zeros. It's still 7 times 2 is 14, but 2 zeros make it 1400. Okay? 700 times 2. There's 2 zeros. 7 times 2 is 14. Add the 2 zeros. We still have 1400. Okay? So my question to you is, what would 700 times 2000 be? And what you should end up getting if you do this is you should get 7 times 2 is still a 14. But then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. So we put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. We end up getting 1,400,000. So what I want you to understand is that when we multiply by a number and we add a 0 onto the end of it, all we're doing to that answer is adding a 0 onto the end of that. All right, so let's talk about the steps to long division. And we're using a new method. It's called hangman division. It's something that you did not learn in middle school or elementary school or whenever it was that you did long division last time. No, this is a different type of long division, and I found that it seems to help out a little bit. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to multiply your divisor by 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so if we're given a problem like 3,913 divided by 43. We want to multiply that divisor, which remember is the denominator in this fraction, the bottom of the fraction. We want to multiply that by 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 5. So let's go ahead and do that first. We're going to take 43. Oh, I don't want that. I don't want blue. I want some black right now. Okay, we're going to multiply 43 by 1, 3, and 5. Now first, 43 times 1 is easy. 43, or anything times 1 is just itself, right? 43 times 2 is going to be, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8, so 86. And then lastly, 43 times 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus the 1 is 21. And so we've got our 3 numbers. Got 3 numbers, 43 times 1, 43 times 2, 43 times 5. The very next step is to find the product from step 1, so 43, 86, or 215, because remember product is the answer to a multiplication problem. We want to find the product that is closest to the beginning of the dividend, the top of the fraction, that's what dividend is, without going over, okay? So we're going to make a little hangman division. We're going to switch colors real quick. We'll do blue now. We like blue. I'm sorry, blue. We're going to do this type of division. Remember at the beginning we said that this looks like the exact same thing, but we're going to change it up a little bit and we're going to draw this line down. And straight lines are hard. Sorry, Dad. Dad was an architect. He could draw straight lines. I can't. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the product that is closest to 39. The front of this dividend is 39 out of 3,913. And so the one that's closest to it without going over, the only one, is 215, right? The first 3 numbers, 215 is lower than 391. Now, we want to create a 4-digit number if possible, so I'm going to add in a 0 right there. And remember, we talked about this earlier. If 43 times 5, times 5, that's what we're going to put over here, is 215, and we add a 0 to it, all we're doing is adding a 0 right there, okay? And so we found the number, the product that is closest, and the third step here is to use that number and subtract from the dividend. So we're going to subtract 2,150 from 3,913, and 3 minus 0 is 3. 1 minus 5 we can't do, so we're going to cross that out, and that's going to become an 8. Now we've got 11 minus 5, which is 6. 8 minus 1 is 7, and 3 minus 2 is 1. All right, perfect. So next step, we're going to go over to green now. Green color next. So we got to find the number that is lower than 176, okay? But we see that none of these numbers are starting with the 1. None of those numbers will go under 1. So we have to come up with our largest 3-digit number. And the largest 3-digit number we're going to be able to create out of those options is 860, right? Because 43 times 2 is 86. 43 times 20 is 860. And now when we subtract this, 3 minus 0 is 3. 6 minus 6 is 0. 7 minus 8 we can't do, so we have to borrow. 17 minus 8 is going to give us a 9. So 903 is what we're left over. And we're going to keep repeating this process. This is actually step 4 here. We're going to repeat this process until we have nothing left. So let's keep on going. If you look at 9, all 3 of these numbers are under 9, so we're going to use 860 this time. Remember, 43 times 2 is 86, times 20 is 860. We're using the same exact number. 3 minus 0 is 3. 0 minus 6 we can't do, so we're going to borrow from the 9, make that an 8. 10 minus 6 is 4, so we have 43, and 8 minus 8 is 0. So we're good there. And what you notice here is good times we're going to celebrate. 43 times 1 is 43. And if we subtract that, we end up getting 0 remaining, which is what our goal was. Now this right side over here, that's what gives us the answer, is if we add up all of the things on the right side of our hangman, 50, 20, 20, and 1, if we add all those up together, we end up getting 91. And that's going to be what our answer is. So 3,913 divided by 43, the answer to that is just 91. All right, so we're going to do another example here, and the very first thing we want to start off with is multiplying our divisor by 1, 2, and 5, all right? And remember, our divisor here is the denominator, dividend is the numerator, and so we're going to multiply 31 by 3 numbers. Those 3 numbers are listed over on the left side or in your notes. They're 1, 2, and 5, so 31 times 1 obviously is 31. 31 times 2 is 62, and 31 times 5 is simply 155, all right? So now we're going to create our little hangman. We've got 2015 divided by 31. And we're making this a hangman division, right? Whoa, crazy line. Crazy line. All right, so we look at the 2 here, and we look at these 3 numbers, and the only number that's that starts with a number less than 2 is this one over here, the 155. And so we're going to write that 155 right here, and we're going to add in an extra 0 there, which means that we're multiplying 31 times 50, right? 31 times 5 is 155. 31 times 50, we just add a 0. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and subtract now. 5 minus 0 is 5. 1 minus 5 we can't do, so we got to borrow, but this 0 we can't borrow from, so we got to borrow from the 2, which makes that 1. Borrow from the 10, makes that 9. It's getting all confusing in here. 11 minus 5 is 6. 9 minus 5 is 4. Don't screw that up on accident, because that's easy to do. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So we've done the first round. Now we look at, okay, we've got 465. If we look at 31 times 1, 31 times 2, and 31 times 5, we see the next closest to this would be the 31. And so we're going to write 31 here, and we're going to add a 0, which means that we're multiplying by 10. When we subtract that, 5 minus 0 is 5, 6 minus 1 is 5 as well, and 4 minus 3 is 1. And look at that. 155 is the exact same thing as 31 times 5, and so we're going to use that number, subtract, we end up getting 0 left over, which is exactly what we wanted to do. And we add all these up, we end up getting our number to be 65. And you know what? That kind of makes us pretty happy. Let's do a word problem now. This word problem. Don't be scared of word problems, by the way. They're no biggie. No big deal. It says McDonald's opens for lunch at around 11 o'clock a.m. If they sell 1,250 chicken nugget meals at the end of closing at 9 p.m., how many nuggets do they sell per hour? Okay, so we need to think, okay, we're selling 1,250 chicken nuggets. How many do they sell per hour? How many of those meals do they sell per hour? Well, how many hours are we talking about? From 11 to 9 p.m., that's going to be a total of what? Oh, you guessed it, 10 hours, right? So we're looking at 1,250. I don't want to do that. We're going to use black here. We're going to use 1,250, and we're going to find out how many that is using 10. And I'm sorry about that line. That's an ugly line. Another ugly line. So remember, our first step is to multiply by 3 numbers, right? 10 times 1. We multiply our divisor by those 3 numbers is 10. 10 times 2 is just going to be 20. And finally, 10 times 5 is going to be 50. All right.
we got our three numbers, and if we look very, very closely here, we see that the only number that's going to work here is if we use 10, and we're able to add 2 zeros to this, which means that we're adding 2 zeros over here, which is multiplying by 100. So we're going to subtract that. We get 0, 5, and 2. 250, look over here, we can do a multiply by 20 now, because 10 times 20 is 200. And that'll keep us under there. Subtract, we get 50 left over. And finally, we're going to multiply by a 5, which is 50 again. Subtract, we get 0 leftovers, which is what we wanted. Add all these up, and it's going to be 125 right there. That would be our answer. Circle that little thing in red there because that makes us happy. But here's the thing. When we are facing a word problem, those word problem questions, there's something I really want you guys to make sure that you do, and that's answer your word problem questions with a complete sentence, okay? We need to have a complete sentence. So the question is asking how many nuggets did they sell per hour? Well, that means they sold 125. They sold 125 chicken nugget meals every hour. And it should look something like that right there. Okay? That's all you got to do for that one.